Hey guys, so I am sitting at the airport here in Gothenburg waiting for my flight, and yeah, going up to Stockholm to tomorrow. Well, tomorrow I'm visiting Klarna, and yeah, you should be here. Like on average, they tell you to be here 2 hours ahead of your flight, and that's what I do. I always, I'm a good boy, so I'm always here 2 hours ahead of time, and I like to just walk around across along the different gates here and look at people and listen to some good music because I don't know, there's something about airports, at least for me, that kind of makes me realize how they're like all these people are going somewhere or they're arriving from somewhere. There's it's not something I don't think about all that often, but it's really only when I'm at an airport. Like you have so many humans, so many human lives that have all these people have at least as much stories and experiences that you have, and there's so many. I don't know. I get this overwhelming sensation, a realization how many people we're talking about, how many experiences, how many stories, how many lives that are all like this massive swarm of people and experiences and most of them I will never know. Like all these people, I'll probably never know their names or even what their story is. But it's just it's probably the same realization that astronomers get when they really think about how big the universe is. It's not that big, but that's the same sensation. Anywho, what I wanted to talk to you guys about is a few of my opinions about, there's this discussion, and this has been going on forever, loosely typed languages, benefits and consequences, and strongly typed languages, which one is better. Now I'll skip ahead to the end and immediately tell you that my opinion is that if you have the option, always go with a strictly typed language or a strongly typed language. It is hands down the best thing you can, in my opinion. You should always do that, unfortunately. And this is coming from a guy who does most of his work in JavaScript, so yeah, think about that. Now, the reason why I feel this way is if we think about it from a completely objective perspective, there are really only two things if from a software developer's perspective, your code is only going to get affected, in theory, in two different ways. Well, a few other things, but from my perspective, there are two main things that are going to affect your code depending on a loosely typed or a strongly typed language. And first and foremost is that you're going to have an easier time in a typed language to debug your code and write maintainable code over time. The reason for that is that for you guys who do JavaScript, whenever, in theory, now most of us don't do this, but in theory, you should type check the input of every single function you have in your entire code, because even if you have no guarantees what's going to go into that function. And that means that, if somebody's passing you something that you're not expecting, you should handle that ideally. And most of us just let the code break, and then that's the end of it. Which, as you can hear immediately, is more bug prone than in a typed language where you can't actually provide an input that is not of the type that you're expecting. So being upfront about that and having a way of in the technology, at the technology level or the language level, to enforce that is immensely powerful, which makes things like refactoring and spelling errors, all these tiny human mistakes that we do, they basically disappear. The downside of it, in my opinion, is that you have to compile things. And that's the only real downside to having a typed or compiled language, in my opinion. It's a little bit slower in terms of development speed and writing code and stuff. And to me, for the most part, you can get around that. It's not something that you have. I don't think that's a big issue. And considering the benefits of a typed language, in opposition to this, I would say that the type language is in general the better way. And if you don't agree with me, I want you to know that most of what's happening, there's a lot of projects that are trying to somehow get types into JavaScript. So I'm not just pulling this out of thin air, guys.